Welcome to Kambani Zambia TV, your home for fearless investigative journalism, bold analysis, and untold stories from Africa and around the world. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button, tap the like, and share this video to spread the truth far and wide. We dig deeper, ask the hard questions, and uncover what others won't. This is more than news. It's journalism that holds power to account. Let's get started. Disclaimer. The content in this video is based on publicly available reports, statements, and allegations. These claims remain unverified, and we do not endorse or confirm their accuracy. This video is intended for informational and discussion purposes only.
Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to be diving into a truly fascinating and honestly, a deeply human legal dispute over the final resting place of a former head of state. Today, we're unpacking a landmark case that recently shook up the intersection of government protocol, international jurisdiction, and constitutional family rights. It's called the sovereignty of kin, the Lungu burial rights ruling. You know, when a highly public figure's life comes to an end, it really makes you wonder, who gets the absolute final say? Does their body belong to the nation they spent their life serving, or does it belong to the family that loved them? That profound question is the absolute core of the high-stakes courtroom battle we're looking at today. All right, let's jump right into part one, a president's final dispute. So, to really understand this, we need to lay out the timeline. The tragedy began on the 5th of June, 2025, when former Zambian President Edgar Chagwa Lungu passed away in South Africa following treatment for terminal cancer. And because he died on South African soil, his remains actually fell under their legal jurisdiction. This quirk of geography triggered a massive legal tug-of-war. Initially, in late 2025, the Gauteng High Court granted the Zambian government the right to repatriate him for a state burial. But the family wasn't having it. They appealed, which led to a massive, landmark Supreme Court of Appeal decision in June 2026. That brings us to part two, the state versus the family. Think about this for a second. Where do we actually draw the line between a government's public protocol and a family's intensely private grief? It is a remarkably delicate balance. Seriously, who truly has the ultimate right to a leader's remains? Well, let's look at the two sides here. On one side, you had the Zambian state. Their claim, they felt they were absolutely entitled to repatriate the former president for a highly public state funeral at Embassy Park in Lusaka. They argue that a binding agreement was already in place. But on the totally opposite side stood the Lungu family, led by former First Lady Esther Lungu and family spokesperson Makabi Zulu. Their claim was deeply, deeply personal. They demanded strict privacy, and they presented evidence of the late president's explicit dying wishes, and those wishes were very clear. The current government, including President Hakainde Hichilema, were to play absolutely no role in his funeral. Okay, let's see how this played out in part three, the court's ruling. To make sense of the final verdict, we have to look at the bedrock legal grounds that swayed the majority of the court. The judges leaned heavily, and I mean heavily, on South African constitutional principles. Specifically, they looked at the fundamental rights to dignity, privacy, and family autonomy. When you couple that with common law principles that recognize the ultimate rights of the next of kin in burial matters, the legal framework pretty clearly prioritized the human element over rigid state protocol. Ultimately, the state's case basically completely unraveled. The Supreme Court systematically broke down the government's arguments one by one. First off, the Zambian government failed to prove any local law or custom that gave them the authority to override the family. Second, there was a glaring, obvious absence of expert evidence regarding strict burial protocols for former presidents. Third, that supposed binding agreement for a state funeral, the court ruled it was just ongoing negotiations, not an actual contract. And finally, the court fully accepted the testimonies confirming Lungu's explicit wish for zero government involvement. Writing for the majority, Justice R.M. Cately delivered the decisive blow. The judge wrote, and this hits the nail on the head: the Zambian government's failure to establish a right under either the common law or contract to override the family's burial decision is fatal to its case. Fatal. So the court didn't just side with the family. They set aside the High Court's earlier decision, they completely dismissed the government's application, and they even awarded costs against the state. Now, to be completely objective here, we do need to acknowledge that this was not a unanimous slam dunk. There was a dissenting judgment. Justice Norman Jay argued that the initial High Court ruling should actually stand. This dissenting view was based on the idea that earlier discussions and shared funeral programs constituted a legitimate binding agreement between the parties for a state burial. But as we just saw, the majority's defense of family autonomy is what ultimately prevailed. Let's wrap things up with Part 4, Sovereignty of Kin. So, what is the big takeaway from all of this? It's crystal clear. Under South African law, the sanctity and privacy of a family's choice holds way more legal weight than a government's demand for public honors. The court emphatically concluded that neither law nor evidence justified interfering with a family's deeply personal decision. The sovereignty of the kin stands supreme. I'm going to leave you with this to chew on. When the cameras turn off, the crowds go home, and the official duties end, if a leader dedicates their entire life to the state, does the state somehow own their legacy in death? Or does the family rightfully get to reclaim their loved one? It's an incredibly profound question, and this ruling gives us a definitive, striking answer to consider. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.
This is Kambani Zambia TV, your home for fearless investigative journalism.
Support means the world and helps us create more awesome content. Got something to say? Drop a comment below. We want to hear your thoughts and ideas. Let's chat. And hey, if you think your friends would enjoy this, share it on YouTube. Spread the love and help our community grow. Thanks for being part of our journey. Let's keep it going.